Bizarre Brain Comics.
Pardon my appearance. I just woke up from my dirt nap.
Oh. Hello again. The Dark Librarian is here once again to tell tales of terror. Oh, yeah. And this one rounds out our October Halloween theme. And this will be episode 53. That means I've been producing this channel for 1 year. Thanks to everyone who has subscribed and watched my videos. Spread it around. Let more know, please. Okay. Mr. Bones here is guarding the place. Oh. Mr. Butler, don't seem to be doing anything. Okay.
I trust you'll find it very comfortable.
Oh, well. Well, I'm sure the master will. And since, here we go. A toast to blood. Because blood is a major theme with tonight's book. Here we have The Tomb of Dracula, number, 26, from 1974 Marvel Comics by Marv Wolfman and Colan. So let's have a look. A moment to consult the big book of knowledge. The Tomb of Dracula. It was a horror series published by Marvel Comics from 1972 to 1979. And besides Dracula, the series featured a group of vampire hunters fighting Dracula and other supernatural menaces. And the character of Blade appeared therein. You remember Blade, the movies. Had some successful movies of Blade and a short-lived television series in the 1990s. And Dracula also appeared in other Marvel titles, such as Spider-Man and Howard the Duck. And of course, he was had his own black and white magazine, Dracula Lives. I used to have several of them, no longer. And Monsters Unleashed. And after several writers early on, Marv Wolfman took on the writing duties for most of the title's run. So Marv Wolfman, born in 1946, and he is still alive. He was a writer for Marvel Comics, primarily writer for The Tomb of Dracula, with artist Colan. Together they created the vampire slayer Blade. For DC, he worked on the new Teen Titans, when they first appeared, and the Crisis on Infinite Earths. There's so many other things too. And he co-created many of the characters featured in New Teen Titans, both both heroes and villains. And Gene Colan, one of my favorites. Gene Colan from 1926 to 2011. Sad. But perhaps he walks among us as the undead. Would be appropriate. He began working in 1944, doing aviation stories in Wings comics. And he joined the Army Air Corps, intending to be a gunner on bombers, but that was never realized. And he spent time in the Philippines and drew for the Manila Times. And after the Army, he got work at Timely Comics before it became Marvel. And then losing that job to downsizing, he did some romance stories. Oh, I skipped a line. He did some work for DC Comics, doing war comics and eventually romance stories. See, I skipped a line. In the 60s, he started doing Doctor Strange, Daredevil, Captain Marvel, and while working at Marvel, he also did horror stories for Warren Publishing. Those were the creepy, eerie, and Vampirella magazines. And in the 70s, he really shined in Tomb of Dracula, also later doing some Batman for DC, and which he even did a storyline in which Batman and Robin were turned into vampires. How appropriate. And he also did some wonderful work on Wonder Woman. And of course, he did all kinds of other things. He did, in the 80s, he did some detective comics, Detective Inc. And there was another one, I cannot remember the name of it. As well as doing the miniseries Gem. I can't remember it, but it was related to a series that was related to the Martian Manhunter. And that's what we've got for now. So one last sip to the Dark Lord's Hell. Mm-hmm. Now, let us go forth and delve into the tomb of Dracula. Yes, the Tomb of Dracula. Number 26 from 1974. This is a wonderful cover drawn by Gil Kane. It's very, very classic. I just love the terror and fear in this woman's eyes, and then above her. Oh, just so classic as he's seems to be about to pounce on the unsuspecting victim. A vampire stalks the night. You'll gasp when you see the soul-searing shock ending of this tale of terror. Oh, yeah. Tomb of Dracula was great, and I wish I had gotten more when I was a kid. But when you live in a BFE farming community, you have one spinner rack for comics and very little money. You have to do some picking and choosing on what you buy. I have some others. Here, I love the cover, and this one is drawn by Gene Colan. This is a great cover, and it's very, very inspiring. And it looks like it could have been a movie poster for one of the Christopher Lee Hammer movies. Dracula, that's great, wonderful. This one is a bit more dynamic, but less fear-inspiring. This was by Pablo Marcos, who is better known for doing superhero, a lot of fantasy and historical stuff, and it was extremely exaggerated, and on his musculature and the like, which is in some way is kind of a detraction for this stuff. But he did not do the interior art. The interior art was by artist Don Heck, whereas the interior art on this one was also by the great Gene Colan. Tom Palmer did the inking, and then here was another one I recently read. And I really like this. While very static, is a very lovely cover. Looks like it's drawn, at the very least, inked by John Romita Sr. And I like this one. This is new. Her name is Lilith. She is Dracula's daughter, and not at all related to the Dracula's Daughter movie, which was the direct sequel to Dracula from Universal Pictures in the 1930s. But here we go, The Tomb of Dracula. Is a wonderful cover. I would greatly love to have either one of these as posters. They're just 1974, The Tomb of Dracula, and it's just the way the establishing shot, and it's relatively small. Often establishing shots are larger, but here you can see some undefined dim building at night. You can see the streetlights radiance and the glow from the windows at the basement windows, and then the door, and finally we come up. Where lurks the chimera? It's a little bit misleading, and here we see it's a pawn shop in London, run by this old Jewish man and his son. And here he has pieces of a sculpture. The sculpture is a chimera. And they're talking about the sculpture. Said, the power that is the chimera. Is it wise, Father, that the pieces should be joined? You have taught me the words that treasures wickedly come by give no benefit, by Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan, with Tom Palmer as the artist, and John Costanza's letter. And Tom Palmer also did the coloring, and he did a nice job helping to convey the dark, moody impressions here. And here they are still talking about the chimera, and as they're talking, we see these figures, cloaked, hatted and coated figures, look like thugs, approaching, going down the steps. This is some very nice panel-to-panel storytelling. You see the time passing as the father is he's reciting some quotes from I think it's from Solomon. The wicked is the bread they eat, and violence the wine they drink. And here he's still working on the sculpture. And then, just as he's finishing up the quotation, the door opens just slightly, and a gas bomb goes off. Boom! Gas or smoke bomb. Boom! And here we see, oh my gosh, you can't see, but you can just faintly see some figures in the background moving around in the smoke, and the sun is overwhelmed. Then these figures hustle around him, knock him to the ground, slug him, and then as they're gone suddenly, and the smoke begins to clear, and he finds his father laying dead on the ground. But clutched in his hand is still one piece of the sculpture of the chimera. He's dead. They've killed him, but he holds onto the tail of the chimera. He holds onto his gift. Under cover of the cloak, a venal man takes the gift to pervert the course of justice from Proverbs. Then our scene changes. This has really little to do with the overall story. It plays into story going on into other issues. This is the mute manservant of Van Helsing, Abraham Van Helsing. His name is Taj, and he has gone home because his wife, or a family member, has died, and he's been very separated from his invalid wife because she has blamed him for her injury, the same injury that rendered him mute, and he slugs his friend and then helps him. So we switch back to London, and here is a group of toughs about to assault this figure here, who is Dracula. He's the one what killed Ma Murray. I saw him do it. I saw him smiling while she screamed out to him to stop, but he didn't. He went right on. Back, you mindless wretches. Dracula commands you, halt! And look at this. A great face, and then has this glimmer in his eyes, which renders the men helpless to his mental powers. And even though they try to, then they overcome it and assault him. But as he stands his ground, and soon they're all laying on the ground, dead or sorely injured. So Dracula transforms into that. Look at this great transformation scene as he turns into the bat and flies away. And he's come to the pawn shop. Flies to the pawn shop that we had just spotted. We had just left a moment ago. As he's monologuing, says, "There, Joshua Eskol's pawn shop, and if my informants are correct, the secrets of the power absolute." So he's up there, and he sees the dead. Looking in the window, he sees the dead body of the old man. Then what's this? There's a cop and the son with the cops saying, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" He says, "Oh, I just come to gawk," basically. So he goes back into the foggy London night, and then whisps up to a rooftop to observe what goes on. And here we come to another figure. It has little to do with the overall story here, because all of this is a continuing storyline, and these are little snippets of the overall story. Here's this lady. Oh, she bumps into the young man. Say, aren't you David Eshol? Joshua Eshol's son? Yes. Very lovely young lady. And here she introduces herself and saying she is from the museum his father had contacted. He didn't know anything about it. But what we do know, the reader, if he's been following, knows that this lovely young lady here, they stop at a cafe, and while they talk, Dracula is up there, and he watches it. But what this young lady is actually, wrong one, his own daughter, Lilith, or her spirit, inhabiting the body of this lady, and from when it's time for her to do her vampiric thing, her appearance changes back to that of Lilith. But here she is in total command of this young lady. No, I'm sorry. That is incorrect. I'm thinking of the wrong lady. This was the lady that was in a castle and under Dracula's protection from someone who had been beating her. I'm sorry. I got my storylines mixed up. But anyway, so she goes off with David, and here Dracula flaps on. And here's one of those thugs. He's on the phone talking to his boss, one of those thugs who stole the statue, and the boss says, "Bring it to me." And we come to another character. This plays a little in their overall theme. And goes, "Frank Drake?" Yeah, he's kind of a homeless guy right now, but he's an out of work vampire hunter and security man. I've forgotten exactly, like a private detective type troubleshooter. And this lady, she was sent by Chastity Jones is her name, and she was sent by, was it Harker? It's either Harker or Van Helsing. I can't remember. And I don't want to read all the dialogue here. And she takes him off to her apartment where he can get a shower and change. They're supposed to go to fly away to New York to meet. Oh, she was paid by Danny Summer, a friend of his. Oh, yeah. And so he said, well, we got to hurry, though. It's got to catch that plane. So he's shaving, and then she says, well, doesn't really matter. The plane is actually waiting for us. So we've got time, and things get a little get romantic, and that towel he has wrapped around his waist kind of falls down. Now, it's funny, because that is, for the time, that is very sexually suggestive. Now, younger readers may not grasp that. That's even more suggestive than some of the stuff that they had a few years before had objected to in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury. So here they are driving along. This is David Eshel and the young lady, and they're going to meet someone. This old lady here who had been who knew about this sculpture his father had mentioned, and she knows David from when he was a child. She was a midwife. Look at the great character, especially right up here. The great character in her face. Oh, that's so beautiful. He does some great. As you can see, it's kind of unusual page layout or panel layout. Because you see, and it has this dark moodiness. Everything is dark and moody and grim. And has great anatomy. Even though sometimes it's just a suggestion. And here she's talking about, there's great power in that sculpture of the Chimera. It goes back many thousands of years, 30,000 of years, until it was when it was first forged from some mystical metal. And then the man who, the source wizard who made it, was slain, and here the assassin stole the statue, and it reappeared later 10,000 years later, during the reign of Colan, King of Volusia. The Chimera resurfaces again. Using the statue's power, a base villain created a flame giant to destroy the barbarian king. And that is, I think, referring to a story from Colan. But Colan survived, but death was rampant. And then on and on. Here we have, it appears again to mankind. I think this is supposed to be Charlemagne. And it's more fighting over it, more death. So it sounds like fantasy. Yes, it does. Oh, here's this. I mean, I look at this nice panel. The three huddling there talking. And just, even though it's not extreme detail, but in that lamp there. Great detail in that lamp. But overall, the setting is just dark. You see a candle, you see some bare walls with shadows, and you see some curtains, and it just really conveys mood. And here's this great character in this lady's face. Oh, great. Now here's Dracula going on, and he goes to this place where he has followed the thug to find for the Chimera. He crashes through the barred window. And he says, "Odd. There is no repulsion upon entering this manse. It's almost as if I'm being invited in by some unseen source." And he goes on in, and then behind the window, a steel door slams shut, and he says, "Ha ha ha ha! Fools! No one contains Dracula. No one!" Wow, that's great. And then his voice invites him in further. So he follows the voice through the building. Here's some offices of some kind. This is very nice detail here in this office space. And then we see, well, he's been on monitor. We still don't know who is speaking to him, but he's invited. You see some technology. We don't know who it is, but the voice is over, and it says, "Another door sliding down. Do they truly believe such a simple barrier will humble Dracula?" It says, "We have no wish to humble you, Dracula. Indeed, we only wish that you die." That's hard on my throat. And now he's taken aback. He goes, "What? It isn't possible. It cannot be." And then another door opens in this chamber in which he is trapped with water gushing in. And Dracula himself is horrified because this water can mean ultimate doom to him, because the water is... And this is holy water, and for Dracula there can be no escape. Ha! Death dwells in the shadows next time. And so this is kind of an intermediate. I'm sorry, is very little overall story, a self-contained story. It's just one more chapter in an ongoing storyline. But I like it. I love the storytelling the visual storytelling by Gene Colan, and some nice characterization and these interstitial scenes written by Marv Wolfman. He does very well. Unfortunately, you don't actually... Here you learn about the power of the Chimera. Dracula wants the Chimera for his power. Someone else who we don't know wants the Chimera for his power. And we know that someone is going to come back to get that last piece of the Chimera, because it had been broken into 3 pieces, and the old man had put them back to eventually found them all and was going to reassemble them and try to do good with them. But I think it's like the Ring of Power from Lord of the Rings. No good can be done with it. These are all very fun reads. Of course, the continuing storyline is, if you don't have the parts before and the parts after, it can seem like a waste. There's almost no little satisfaction in having read it, because it comes to no conclusion. Even in this one, it is continued, but it is a more satisfying read. There's keeping track of Drac with Marv Wolfman. And then in that background, I had other vampire stories, and I love this cover, as I said. And this is probably a more it's double-sized. This is a more complete overall plot. So, yeah. Oh, that's a great concluding scene. Well, so I hope you enjoyed our month of Halloween, October Halloween month, and the pièce de résistance, or the coup de grace, the tomb of Dracula. What else could it be? What else could it be other than Dracula? Dracula. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. I sure did. Please like and share with your horror friends and your comic book friends. I appreciate it. Every little bit helps. And remember, comics are art, so have pleasant screams.